Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to do some simple watercoloring and we're going to be using this beautiful blossom stamp from Art Impressions. We're also going to be using a 3D embossing folder, and I'll also show you how to use the Art Impressions bookmark die in a little bit of a different way. So let's go ahead and get started by grabbing this bookmark die. We're grabbing the largest die from this set, and we only need a portion of this. So I'm going to place it on some Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'll run that through my die cutting machine. Now we don't even need this entire piece, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this down. The card will measure 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so I want this panel to be the width of our card, which will be 4 1/4. So I've cut that down, and again I'm using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock, and this is the Art Impressions Bible Journaling set. You get these two borders in this set, and this is called the Blossom Border Set. And we're just going to grab one of these. Now I'm using my mini Misty stamp positioner, and I'm going to just leave enough room so I can stamp this border. I don't need the whole image, just a portion of it. I'm going to tack this down with a little bit of Tombow permanent tape runner, and that'll easily remove when we're done with our stamping. So I'll be stamping this image with my VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is a permanent black ink, but we are going to be embossing it. So when you're going to emboss with this ink, because it does dry pretty quickly, you want to put your embossing powder on it right away. You don't want to let it sit too long, otherwise it will dry. And so I'm going to grab some clear embossing powder and sprinkle that on right away. Now you don't have to heat set it immediately, but you do want to get the powder on there right away. So once that's on there and I'm tapping away any excess, I'm going to make sure that my heat tool is nice and hot, and then I'll go ahead and emboss this. So we're going to be doing some watercoloring here. So I thought it would be a lot easier to emboss it and kind of keep that watercolor inside my images. It just makes it a lot easier to color this in. Now for watercolors, I'm using the Prima Marketing Tropical set. And I like to keep some of the packaging, but I also created my little samples as well. So this is the palette that we're going to be using here. And I'm going to just be using those two colors there to get started. So I'm just putting a little bit of water here on these just to get them nice and wet. And then to paint these, I'm going to be using my Tim Holtz Detailer Tip water brush. And I'm basically just dropping that color right down in there. I'm just going to get them nice and wet first and start with my lighter color. And then I'm just dropping a little bit of that darker color in. So this goes really quickly. I'm not fussing with these at all. I'm just simply letting the water do the work for me. Now you can go back over them and just smooth that out a little bit, but you don't even need to. I mean, it really is very forgiving, and I do like the random watercolor effect that you get doing this. Now these would be a great project to bring with you on the road. If you're going away for a long weekend or going camping, you can just stamp and emboss all of these and then just bring your paints with you. All you need is your water brush and your paints, and you can just sit and color these in. It's very relaxing. And then when you get home, you can assemble your cards. So it's kind of a nice way to get started as well. Now I'm going to grab these two greens, that lighter green there and then the darker green. Again, I'm just applying a little bit of water, and then I'll just go back to my detailer brush, and I also am going to use a little bit of that yellow that we used on the flowers as well. So again, I'm just going to start with my lighter color, add my darker color, and I'm simply just dropping it in there, kind of letting that water move it around a little bit for me. And then on some of these, I'll add a little bit of yellow as well, just to add a little highlight here to some of these leaves. If you have too much ink in there, you can just pull it off with your water brush and dab the water brush onto a paper towel, and that'll just remove some of that color. And once those start to dry a little bit, if you want to add a little bit more of that darker color to the centers, you can come back in and just dab a little bit more of that darker color in there for a little bit of a shadow. But again, I do say you don't really have to do that. You can just kind of let it just do whatever it does with the water itself. Now I'm taking my antique linen distress oxide ink pad and one of my smaller brushes from my Picket Fence Studio life-changing brushes, and I'm going to go all the way around the edges of this just to soften that white edge a little bit. And we are going to be using a craft color cardstock to create the card base. So I thought this would just soften the white edges here a little bit and make it go with our craft cardstock a little bit better. So I'm just going to run that all the way around the edges and just kind of feather it into that white color. Just keeping it very soft. Now this panel measures 3 3/4 inches by 5 1/2 inches. And again, this is the Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. And I'm going to run that through this beautiful 3D embossing folder. This is from the Holtz Sizzix collection. This is called the Textured Impressions Swirls embossing folder. And again, you're going to get this beautiful three-dimensional look. So I'm placing that in the embossing folder. Now you do want to follow the instructions for your specific machine, but I will show you a little trick that I use. I have the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine, and I like to use a couple of pieces of cardboard. These are just the backs of some notepads that I had. And with 2 of those stacked one on top of each another, I can run this through. And you don't want it to be tight at all. It's fairly loose as it's going through. If it feels tight in any way, just back it out and take off a piece of cardboard. You could also stack up a few pieces of cardstock as well. Just play around with it until you get the effect that you're looking for. Now with that antique linen distress oxide, I'm just going all around this embossing folder. I'm using a very light hand here. I do want to keep that kind of up on top of the embossed area. Just adding a little bit of shadow here, but I don't want to take away all of the white. So again, just with a light hand, I'm just adding a few little shadows here and there. And that'll sit right on top of that panel. Now for my card base, this measures 8 1/2 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to score this at 4 1/4. That's going to give me a standard A2 size card, which measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. But I do want to cut away a portion of that right hand side of the front of the card. So I'm going to just cut off 1/2 of an inch from the top front panel of the card. So I'm just going to cut away 1/2 inch. And you can see that panel is going to fit right on the front of our card there now. Now once I've done that, I'm going to add a few score lines to this. So I flipped the cardstock over to the back side of the card, and I'm scoring this 4 times every 1/16 of an inch up to 1/2 inch. And you can see that's going to give us a beautiful nice border on the inside of the card. Now you could do it the other way as well. You could do the score lines on the front of the card. Either way is fine, but I did do it from the back so it would be pushed forward towards you. Now let's take this beautiful stamp set here. I'm going to be using that sentiment that says "to a dear friend." And this has some beautiful sentiments on it. And this was part of an exclusive set done in conjunction with scrapbook.com, and this is called the Daisy set. So I'm going to grab that sentiment and stamp it right on the center of this little panel that we have. Again, I'm using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I am going to stamp this a couple of times, and then we'll emboss this with the clear embossing powder as well. So I'm just sprinkling on the embossing powder, and I've tapped away any excess, and then I'll go ahead and heat set that. Now, I'm also going to take another stamp set from Art Impressions from the Bible journaling set, and this is called the butterfly set. And we're going to grab 2 of those butterflies. I'm just going to place those on a small acrylic block and stamp those with that same black ink. I'll stamp 2 of the smaller one and 1 of that larger one. And again, I'm going to go ahead and emboss these. So we're going to be watercoloring these as well. And again, this is going to make it really easy to do our watercoloring. That embossing will keep our watercolors right inside those butterflies. So I'm going back to that same tropical set we used before. And there's a lot of colors here that would blend together. So you kind of have fun with these butterflies. But in the end, I did decide to stick to those 2 colors we used on the flowers. And then I'm adding that 3rd color, which is kind of more of a pinky red color, just for a little bit more of a shadow here on my butterflies. So I'm starting with that kind of yellowy color. And then I did mean to add that orange color first. And then I'm going to add that pinky red color in the center. And then again, I'm just kind of letting the water do the work here, letting those sort of bleed into one another and do some blending there. And then you can come back in and just kind of blend that a little bit more if you want to when you're done. And I am tapping that brush off on a clean paper towel off to the side there, just to remove the excess color and when I'm switching colors as well. So here I started with that light color all over. I'm adding that more orangey tone, and then I'll add a little bit of that pinky red color here. And just again, let that kind of bleed into those other colors. And you can see how easy and beautiful this is. And again, you could do these butterflies in 3 different colors. Just have some fun with this. I think this palette here, almost any of these colors would work really well. So I'll do the same thing here for this last little one. So I let those dry. You could use your heat tool to heat set those, but I did let them set and dry. And then I'm going to cut these out, just leaving a little white border all the way around. I'm using my Nuvo Glitter Gloss Aqua Shimmer pen to add a little sparkle to these. You do want to be careful here now because this is a water-based pen and we used watercolors to color these in. So it will move your ink around a little bit. So you just kind of almost want to dab on this glitter pen. And there I'm just squeezing the barrel of it just to get a little bit more of that flow going. And again, try not to move around my colors too much here. So I'll let those dry. Now I'll take my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive and I'll add plenty of that around the back of this panel. Now I can go ahead and attach that to the front of my card. Now this part I'm going to pop up. So I'm going to be using some Scotch foam mounting tape and I only want it to come right to that little point right there. I'm just going to mark that with a pencil and then I'll place my tape right up to that little pencil mark. And you want plenty of it on here so that it sits up nice on your card when it goes through the mail. And I'm going to go ahead and line that up with the left side of my card. Now I've got my 3 butterflies. I'm going to pop this one up and to make it level with this little panel on the front of the card. So I'll just put some foam mounting tape on the bottom of the butterfly and a little bit of glue up towards the top here, just so it'll sit nice and flat here. And then I'll use my fingers to curl up the wings just a little bit to add a little dimension. Now I just played around with these two here just to see where I wanted the other two to be. I thought that one at the top looked really pretty right at that swirl, right at the top of that swirl in the embossing folder. And then here again for this one I'm going to add a little foam tape and then a little bit of glue down at the bottom of the butterfly and curl up those wings, and I'll do the same thing here for this last one. Just popping that up. Then I'm going to use my Uniball Signal white gel pen, and I had a little bit of ink there or paint there that went over the butterfly. So I just used that pen just to color over the top of that, and you'll never know that I made that little mistake. So it's a really quick fix if you've made a mistake with your coloring. Now I'm using these sequins. This is the Festive Fall Sequin Mix from Neat and Tangled, and I'm going to add a few of these to the front of my card. And I picked those sequins that kind of are a bit of a khaki color to match the card. I didn't want to add any more orange, although you could. That would be pretty as well. I decided to keep it a little more subtle. And then to finish off this card, I'm going to add a little bit of white in the centers of each of those flowers, again with that Uniball Signal white gel pen. So let me give you a closer look at today's card. And I just love all the dimension we have with the 3D embossing and these butterflies. So I hope you give this watercoloring a try. I think it's really easy and fun to do. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. As always, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.